The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make a lot of noise, but women rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Oh, the deeper I fall.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, just please take your seat on my left. We're at the entrance. It's time for pickup. Start. 2, 1. Boost ignition and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott, and it's great to have you along for the ride on this Thursday, June 29th, Wednesday. Make that Friday, June 30th. If you're on the East Coast or across the pond, hope you had a great day and night. We are live right here in the Great White North on top of the mountains of central British Columbia as we are here 7 days a week. Let's welcome in everyone listening in on our terrestrial radio stations. WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are also live on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Thank you for sharing your days and nights with us. We're also live on spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Like our music? Then rock with us to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official sound of SOR. Also, if you're a social media junkie like I am, do me a favor, give us a follow on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, Player.fm, and Stitcher. Our website is SpacedOutRadio.com. And if you head over to Patreon.com for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of SOR as well. Now, if you want to take part in this show, you got to do me a favor. You got to sign into one of the chat rooms by going onto our website, clicking on Listen Live, or you go on Revolution Radio, on Spreaker, on the UPRN chat room, or maybe, if you're a Facebook junkie, you could join the SOR Space Travelers Club. We've opened that up again. Thank you, Gail. Or, if you're on Twitter, be like Les, be like John, be like Goddess Michelle and Andrew, and follow us at hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Get your questions and comments in there. I will read them live as well. If you head to our website for just $5 a month, you can become a member of the SOR Space Travelers Club. And if you go to our Spaced Out Radio store, you could get t-shirts, posters, SOR pictures, or maybe you're looking for a weekend getaway. How about September 29th to October 1st, the first annual Spaced Out Radio Caribou Paracon, happening right here in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia, at the Spruce Hills Spa and Resort. If you go to our website, up until July 31st, tickets will be 10% off, so pick them up while you can. Come out and hang out with us weirdos, man. We want to see you there. Now, we have a news section called The Encounter Online, dealing with everything paranormal, courtesy of our editors, Eric Markham and Everett Thiemer. You can check out my latest blog there as well. And if you've had an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. One of our more popular guests is back on Spaced Out Radio tonight as Ian Holt is back to entertain all of us with his stories that stretch beyond the realm of the paranormal. Ian is a best-selling author, writing the real story behind Bram Stoker's Dracula. He's also a movie director, as his new film starring Mickey Rourke, which we'll get into a little bit tonight, is starting to film in just a month or so from now. So, out in the paranormal world, there are so many mysteries to get into, and the stories that go along with them are incredible. So tonight with Ian, we're getting into the mysteries, and we're also going to get into some of the disinformation that seems to float around, and how you, as a listener and a follower of these topics, can guard yourself against some of that real BS crap that's out there regarding false stories. All the way from New York, thick with accent, but still a fellow Gemini, Ian Holt. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. How you doing, my friend?
How you doing, Dave? Hello, everyone out there. Good to be back. And for New York, well, you know, New Yorker lovers, hey, yo, how you doing?
Well, our Yankees are still going strong, man. Our Yankees are still going strong. That's all that matters.
Barely. They got so many injuries. Oh, the pitching and everything. I just have faith they'll make some good trades. They got a lot of people to trade, and by the trade deadline, we'll be back on track.
Yeah, no kidding.
But it's always when the Yankees are doing well, the Red Sox are doing well. So it's always going to come down to the Yankees and the Red Sox, always. Would we have it any other way?
I know. And let's face it, we don't like the Red Sox around these parts. We like their fans because they may support us. But that rivalry, my friend, just cannot do anything about it. So you come on every couple of months. You must be getting excited. You're within a month of heading to L.A. to shoot your movie with Mickey Rourke.
Oh, I'm very excited. But before I start, I have to do my due diligence. Today's my mom's birthday. My mom, Dolores. So happy birthday, Mom. I love you.
Happy birthday, Ian's mom, from all of us at Spaced Out Radio. What a wonderful day. What a good son you are. What a good son.
Yeah. Well, I owe her everything. She started me watching horror. She's the horror lover and got me, before I could even walk, I was watching the birds on TV. Yeah. She took me to see The Exorcist when I was like 4 years old. Because my dad wanted to take me to see Charlotte's Web, and I started crying. I finally convinced him to take me to The Exorcist. I laughed all the way through it. Destiny, right?
You're a sick and twisted individual. Sick and twisted.
So, also, besides Unhinged, if everyone was listening in, the last time I was officially on after your birthday, but Mike Kuciak was on with me, and he's the director of Death Metal, and we just wrapped that. I produced that. It looks, I don't know how the movie's turned out yet, but if it's as good as the footage I've seen, we've got a real hit. It's really scary and creepy. And it stars Shadia Martin, my good friend, and she did a great job in her first starring role. And I'm really excited for Cooch and for us. We're probably going to take this one to the festivals, do something I had never really done before. But because it was his directorial debut. We didn't put any stars in it because it's hard to have a first-time director with stars, so we have all unknowns. So I want to showcase him, and we might actually do festivals. I think we're going to start with Shriek Fest in LA in October. So it's a new direction for me. We usually go right to distribution, but we're going to try and do something different because I think this one is going to be open some eyes. So we're very excited. To everyone from the cast and crew, thank you from All Pals Productions, it's my company, and me, and congratulations on Death Metal. And all practical effects.
So when you are getting ready to film a movie like you are next month, 6 weeks from now with Unhinged in LA, what do you do during this time? Because most of us, we watch movies, but we don't know how they're put together.
Well, this is where it happens. This is where it really happens. While I'm in New York, I'm working with the casting directors out in LA, and we're getting ready to go out to cast the other roles. Managers, agents, they start calling about actors that they have, and we start finding out who wants to be in the movie, who wants to work with Mickey Rourke, and then we start putting a cast together. Meanwhile, the director is putting together his crew, and we're getting sketches on what the special effects would look like, and we're scouting locations for practical locations like houses and stuff, exteriors, interiors, sound stages, that have hospital sets and police station sets, and you'd start putting together the schedule of what you're going to shoot when on what day, and working in conjunction with the special effects department so that you know which roles you have to cast first. So molds have to be made, like there's a couple of heads that got lopped off, so you got to make those molds. Body drops, you got to find out if you could drop bodies from the house, or you got to do it on a green screen, and little things that you think about that you have to figure out. Now, when the body actually drops, you may not want a full weighted dummy. So you have to figure out: am I doing a full dummy? Am I doing a paper mache or paper stuffed dummy, a foam dummy that weighs less, and then drop that, and then augment it with CGI, a little bit of augmentation. So you have to figure all these things out. Can you paint in the house? Okay, we have people crashing through walls, so we got to build false walls in the house so we don't damage the property. All these things. So it's a bunch of logistical stuff that makes. If you think running a company and putting things together is hard, doing a movie, the logistics involved is crazy. It's a nightmare. But you have to go through all of it. It has to work like clockwork, even where you're getting your food from. I mean, you have to know, is there restaurants in the area? You're going to do craft services. Where are people going to stay? Even just finding offices. You know, you find office space, but then where do you stay? Then you find out about these like suites that have conference rooms in them, so we could all sleep in the same suite, and then just be at the conference room, so we'll get one big place. I mean, and weigh that against budget. Then it's taking the script to the locations, because when you write the script, you write it in your head, and you imagine a house, and you try to find a house that fits. So we have 2 houses that we're going to have to use to make it work, and still have some changes to the script, because this script, where you are in the house, is important to what's happening in the story. So we got to work all that out. There's so many things that go through when you put a movie together, besides just casting, that you're so busy for 3-4 months before you start shooting.
That's a lot of work, man. That is a big time, a lot of work. And how do you find time to sleep and relax when you're going through this? Or is it sleep when it's done, when the project is over?
The truth is, I get like 2-3 hours a night sleep. I get up, I do all the New York calls starting at like 9-10 o'clock. And then I might take an hour or so nap. And then when LA opens at 12, you don't want to call. Everyone really gets in around 10. So I jump up and start making the LA calls. Then New York closes at 5. I might take an hour nap because I've got till 9 to finish stuff in LA. So you sleep when you can, and then you drop dead on the weekends, and you don't have a life. This is why,
hold on a second. You mentioned you don't have a life. What's that like? What is a life like? Because I sit here and I work 16 hours a day. I don't know what a life is like. I'm a little lost by this terminology here.
Well, I mean, for me, a lot of my friends in the business have kids and a wife, and it gets crazy, trying to keep a family and do this kind of work. Now, when you direct, you may be gone for 3 months out of the year directing, but when you produce, you're doing 2-3 films a year, you're gone maybe 6 months out of the year. So it's really hard to try and have a family. And I made a decision a long time ago that I'm married pretty much to my work. And and you get a lot of crap for it too, because a lot of the women I date are younger, and not because I'm some 20-year-old chaser. What happens is, if you're just dating for dating and you're not looking to be serious, because every time you get serious, it all breaks apart. Like, if I'm writing and my girlfriend walks in the room, I'm like, get out! I'm going to lose my train of thought. And that pisses people off, and I don't blame them. But what happens is, the women I meet are usually younger because they're not looking to get married, and it's easier because you're just dating, and it becomes like this thing. When it starts to get serious, all of a sudden everybody hates you. And also, dating is really hard. First dates for me have become nightmares because...
Why, are they ending in a restraining order or what?
No. It's when you're in this business, every time you sit down and talk with someone, you're usually pitching or selling or networking. So you have to be conscious in your head not to come across as self-centered or arrogant, because someone asks you about your life and you start telling them about the movies you're doing or the movies you've done, and you start talking about your resume, basically. And unless you're in the business, I mean, it's just one of those things that happens mostly. So unless you're dating someone in the business, it comes across like, oh, I'm trying to pump myself up to look like I'm really somebody for the date, and you have to catch yourself a lot of times, so even dating is hard when you're in this business. So I usually date other actresses, or you know me. I've dated strippers and porn stars and stuff like that because they understand the business, and they're away a lot shooting also. So it's like a guard thing that goes up, that you try and keep yourself out of having a serious relationship, because from experience, it's so hard, and I hate drama. I get enough drama just from doing the work I do. So it becomes very hard on relationships, family especially. I've got 2 great kids. They're my godkids, and it was great because I got to see them, and then when they got to be annoying, I got to go leave. When they had to change the diaper, I got to leave the room. Having responsibility in all this. I mean, just look at the shoot today. I mean, just so people get an understanding of what we go through. I have to go to LA for 3 months. After Hurricane Sandy, my mom had a TIA, which is like a mini stroke. My dad's 90. She's 86. And I have to figure out, someone to come in and make sure they're okay and look after them and all this stuff. And because I'm going to be gone for 3 months. Most people's jobs, that is a factor. You come home at night, and it's all these extra things. Can you imagine having a family, leaving? My friend, who is an actor, he's going to be on Shades of Blue next season. He just had a kid, and his wife wants to kill him because he's never around. And when he's around, he's auditioning, and she's dealing with the little kid all by herself. He has to get his sleep because he's got to get up for the set. So it's a hard life, no matter if you're successful or not. It's a hard life, and it's sacrifices. It's funny, when I went to NYU and I had my first day as a freshman, and Stella Adler, the great teacher of Brando and De Niro, we were her last class before she retired. She came in and she said the first thing she said is, and it was like hundreds of people there, 90% of you will be gone by the end of the first semester because you don't realize the commitment. And I'll give you another example. When I graduated, I got this great deal on a co-op, and I put down some money. It was only like $3,000 down, and they handled the loan. The owners handled the loan. It was right on Bleecker Street on 6th Avenue. And I said, I got to do this, so don't give me presents. Help me get this down payment so I can get this place. What I didn't realize was I put a ball and chain on myself. I went out and auditioned. I got lead roles in plays for touring companies. They pay $150 a week, room and board. And my apartment with the mortgage and the maintenance, even though I had roommates, was still almost $1,000 a month. I couldn't take the jobs. You really can't. This is a kind of vagabond life where you really can't have many attachments, especially when you're starting out.
Gail has a question for you right off the bat. She's a big fan of yours. I think she wants your autograph, to be honest. I really do.
Oh, I'd be happy to give Gail. Hi, Gail.
Oh, yes. She's asking, when you were going as a kid to these horror movies with your mom, didn't you get any nightmares or anything?
I first was terrified of the monsters, the Universal monsters, when it started. But my dad made me watch, because every Sunday we had Abbott and Costello on Sunday morning on Channel 11 here in New York. So my dad would make breakfast every Sunday morning and with Abbott and Costello. And when Abbott and Costello and Frankenstein was on, he made me watch it. He was like, come, just come. And I remember like peeking out from behind a wall because I was scared. And I started laughing. And once I watched Abbott and Costello and Frankenstein, and I fell in love with the monsters because they were funny, it never scared me anymore. I just never had that, I never got really scared. I think the only movie that ever really scared me was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think that's the only one that I was really, parts of Nightmare on Elm Street, but otherwise, unless something jumps out, we all jump. But, I mean, it actually really scared me. I never had that. And I think it was because when I went to my first movie, it was Planet of the Apes. And I kept asking my mom during the movie, how did they get the apes to do that? And she told me that they're people in makeup in an ape costume. And that's what got me. I was like, you can get paid to jump around like an ape in an ape costume, and that's a job. That's what I want to do. And I never changed really. So I knew from the very beginning all this stuff is fake. And also, I was doing plays by that time already. I was already going out for commercials. So I was the mayor of Munchkinland and the Wizard of Oz. I was earlier production, I was one of the Flying Monkeys. So I understood that it was all pretend. So I never really got scared at all this stuff. I loved it.
I don't blame you for loving it. I mean, it's an entertaining lifestyle as much as you say that it's a vagabond lifestyle, being an artist, being a writer, being a movie director, a producer. I mean, when you're doing all of that, there just seems to be a lot of energy that goes into that, Ian. So how do you find it? Like, how do you put it all together? Is it the creativity that pushes through?
Yeah, well, first, I'm not directing on him. Mark Atkins is a fantastic director. Mark has done like 20 movies, and he's if you've ever seen the breaching great white sharks on Shark Week off Australia, he was the first one to capture that on film. So he's fantastic, Mark Atkins. I'm sorry, I forgot the question because I want to mention Mark. I'm sorry.
Well, not a problem. Not a problem. No, it's more so about the fact that you have to dedicate yourself, like you said, to this genre and the artistry that goes behind authors, the artistry that goes behind movies, being an artist that you are. So how do you find time to digress and just gain your energy back for your own creativity?
Well, energy for creativity was never my problem. I mean, I loved writing stories as a kid. I used to write, I think going back to like second grade, I can remember writing sci-fi and monster movies but short stories. But it was, for me, it's a passion. I love it. Like, a lot of people go through life and try to figure out why they were put on this earth. What God's gift was to them. For me, I found it very early in life, and it never changed. And I'm very stubborn, and I'm very, I've vision quest. I decide I'm going to do something. I'm going to do it, even if it takes forever. No matter what it is, I keep going. And this is what I wanted. Some people want, family, white picket fence. Me, this is what I wanted. I mean, my mom used to say to me, I remember she used to say to me, when am I going to get grandkids? And I said, you're not. I mean, if it happened, it would have been great, but it wasn't my like, what I wanted most. What I wanted most was to make films, write, act, all that stuff. That's what I loved. So to me, you do what makes you happy. And when I'm doing this stuff, it makes me happy. But a lot of people, when, they get the celebrity or whatever, they get angry and they don't want to do interviews and they hit reporters and all stuff. Not me. I mean, I knew what I was getting into, and I love all aspects of it. And it's why I get up in the morning.
Ian, there's a lot of artists out there who believe that horror and the genre behind it is a true masterpiece and artistry, much like making a big budget Hollywood film. What do you think about that term? And is it? Because, the majority of people out there think, well, we just watch a bunch of people get killed. There's really no storyline besides being some sort of slasher film. And the plot is usually very, very basic. But is there a true artistry to it?
Absolutely. I don't look at horror movies as regular movies. They follow the same 3-act structure as all movies, but their setup and delivery system is completely different. I always say that a good horror movie is a amusement park theme ride, roller coaster. That's what it is. It's a theme roller coaster ride. Whereas you have characters and character developments, and you have three-dimensional characters with, turns of their personality or whatever. They learn something from the movie, and they're multidimensional in most films, good films. In horror, you kind of have a different setup of your characters. And a perfect example that I can give is Don't Breathe. You meet the girl, she's robbing houses. You don't like her. Then you go home with her, and her parents are abusive, and they're starting to abuse her younger daughter her younger sister the way they abused her. And now she's robbing money to get the money to get her younger sister, save her younger sister from her abusive parents. And all of a sudden, you root for her. She's hanging out with this really bad kid as her boyfriend, who she's using him to help her rob the houses to make the money. And this other kid that's in love with her is following along because he wants to save her. Okay, got the whole story. They got their next mark. They go in the house. Blind guy got some money, easy mark. And, of course, he's basically, an ex-Marine, and he's a killer, and, he's got a girl tied up in the basement, the whole thing. But the setup is really quick. And then it's about the scares. So, for most horror movies. So it's a different, and then it's how much we can scare you. So it's a really different setup. Instead of loving so much the characters, you're really loving or rooting for them to get out of the situation they're in. So, I mean, Shadi, who stars in Death Metal, is a perfect example. You try to find an actress that has a look like she's a small girl, and she's very attractive and sweet, and it comes across on screen. So you don't have to do much characterization with her. You root for her because she's so likable on screen. And that's not something you can teach. That's just, that unknown thing where the camera loves you. So, you try to cast that way. And if you look at horror movies, the lead from Adrian King in Friday the 13th, to Heather Langenkamp, all these actresses, they have something where you just naturally root for them on screen. She had the alcoholic mom as part of the setup and all that, but it's always a mechanism that makes you root for them. And the films are set up basically, especially the 80s, where if you go into the movie, the popular kids in school, the jock, the pretty girl has all the guys after her, they always get killed first. So there's a formula in these movies where the average person is rooting for them. Like Maniac is a great example. Joe Spinell, who had done The Godfather and Rocky and all these movies, great movies, he wrote a love story about a crater-faced heavyweight janitor who falls in love with a beautiful woman, and she falls for him. And no one would make the movie. No one would make it. So he got pissed off and rewrote it that this guy now goes out and kills all these beautiful women because our media, tells us how someone is supposed to look. And if you could be ugly, but you better have money. If you're a janitor and all that, well, no beautiful woman is going to go for you because she knows her beauty will get her a better man who's got money or something going on. So he rails against our society in it. Nightmare on Elm Street. It's about, we know it's about Freddy chasing down these kids, but at the same time, it's got a moral center where these kids' parents took law into their own hands and burned a pedophile alive. And there's a cosmic justice to the film. Freddy's got a point. He beat the rap in the courts, and the parents took the law into their own hands, and they're guilty, and the kids are paying for their sins. And it's also about this paranormal dream demons and jinns. It gets there's a lot when Craven wrote it. If you see New Nightmare, basically that's the truth. He was a professor at college, and he was teaching about, different religions. And one of the things that came up were the dream demons, which is part of the Muslim faith, which are jinns. And which is like a demon for us. And these demons come into your dreams to bring your guilt, or when you're guilty of something, they chase you in the dreams. So there's a lot going on in these movies. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The town died. These people were poor. They couldn't, the whole town dried up right in the middle of the economic crash in the 70s. And how were they going to survive? They started eating people. So there was an economic message. The Hills Have Eyes have a anti-nuclear message. They were irradiated by the nuclear tests and became living out there in the desert. They became mutants. So, I mean, even though it's just a simple horror movie, it can have a great message. Look at Get Out. I mean, that scene where he goes into the party, and because he's black, everyone there tries to talk black or bring up black issues. I mean, it's really funny. I mean, when I saw it, there was a middle-aged black man sitting next to me in the theater, and when the character on screen, he realized he was dating the white girl, he screams out, "Oh, come on! No black man's gonna go for a girl with a skinny butt like that. She got no ass." And it was hysterical, but it's the social commentary of that film that these guys wanted to be black men because of the stereotype. These white guys, old white guys, wanted to have their brains implanted into young black men because they get all the girls and they got more sexual potency and all these stereotypes. You're watching it, and you're watching a horror movie, but at the same time, it's saying a lot about, racism, white guilt, black insecurity, over certain things. And it's an important film because I think any white person that sees it for the first time gets to understand how a black person feels in certain situations and sees the world through their eyes. And I think it works as a horror movie, but it works so much more than that, especially in this time and day and age.
Let's get into one of the topics that we wanted to get into tonight, Ian, and I want to get this one out of the way here, and we can discuss it right to the top of the hour, and if we got to go over, we always can. You know that. We just kind of take this show
right
wherever we seem to go. But recently, in the last few weeks, there's been this silly video that people are falling for on social media saying, "Oh, it's real, it's real." And it's literally of like what looks to be a planet spinning in the blue sky over some town, and it looks like it's right beside Earth. I mean, it's a great piece of CGI work. But the fact that people are gullible enough out there to think that that is real, how much of this disinformation is really, really screwing with people?
Well, first off, a lot of people pointed out when it first came out that it was on a site that does parodies or fake stuff, but it was picked up by other sites, and when you read it, it's saying that the police, there were witnesses to this in the sky, and there were calls into the Sacramento Police Department. So the line between fake and real gets blurred. And I pretty much thought it was fake. And I put it up on Facebook asking people what they thought. And a lot of people came back that it was fake too. But I spoke to Everett Thamer, and he said that he has a friend, Mark D'Antonio, who works with videos, a forensic video person, and he was going to call him and ask him to look at the video. And Mark took a look and gave his professional thoughts on it, and he came right back and said it's fake. That's CGI. It's probably an image that was picked up of the Earth, and they've gotten it off the internet and just dropped it into the sky. Now that really pissed me off, because we have a hard enough time dealing with, anything paranormal or alternative history. Makes, when we bring something up, we're looked at as kooks. But it's not so much that it's just people. It's actual, archaeological evidence that we find that blows up the traditional evolutionary theories that get no serious study or acceptance, because we're looked at as kooks because of people like this putting fake stuff up. And it's gotten to the point where, I started out, if you've ever seen episode 50, I pretty much trashed supernatural as a word, because nothing could exist outside science. It's all connected to science, even ghosts. I mean, we're finding that we can store energy in an electromagnetic field. Store data in an electromagnetic field, and that's kind of what a soul could be. So science is catching up to what we once thought was supernatural. So I don't like that term. Paranormal is just anything outside the norm. Now, but the term paranormal has gotten a bad rap because of guys like this. You're talking about alternate universes, which we know exist from Einstein, but no one wants to take it seriously that we could see these things, that the universes can cross through each other, which we already know can happen. That's been proven. So when you see something like this, it puts people that are skeptics to begin with calling us kooks, when there's scientific evidence to back up a lot of the things. Every day, new scientific discoveries are getting closer to back up what we've known for a long time, or believed for a long time, or were open to for a long time. And these idiots, instead of getting 1 million followers on YouTube from posting the video, should be like dragged across the coals by all of us. We should call these people out. And maybe we should start using the term alternative history or something like that, because, we open ourselves up, because now, like UFO. Everyone goes, oh, UFOs are aliens. It's not. That's a theory. All a UFO is an unidentified flying object. We don't know what it is. It could be from the military. How do we know? But it's right away associated with aliens. So that term gets screwed up. And it's just guys like put up, or women, but put up stuff like that planet. It just really, really pisses me off.
I understand that, but it's still the purpose of why mess with people's reality. There's a lot of people who are nervous with absolutely everything that's going on, with the media, the way they're fear-mongering, with the way the mainstream doesn't take any of this seriously, and it's just like a bunch of talking heads in front of a screen now. You think, though, that people would be smarter than what they are showing in believing that a video like that is real, or anything that looks CGI or way too well done?
And today with the abilities that are available, and I know because I've seen the CGI that gets done and how we do it, you can do almost anything. So, the fact that everything gets looked at through the skeptical eye of what can be done with a simple program makes everything harder for us trying to legitimize our areas of interest in alternative history, ancient aliens, whatever they are. And no matter, when you've had an encounter with a ghost or a alien or a Bigfoot or anything like that, a UFO, Loch Ness Monster. Now, I've never met anyone, that won't accept the fact that maybe it's something else. They believe what they both saw, but they're open. These are inquisitive people, that want to know the truth. And science relies on corporate investment, government funding, university funding, but we don't get involved in it, because if they came to us and said, "Hey, we want to fund this study on a GoFundMe page," I bet a lot of people would put up money to have it done in a real way. But the bad rap we all have, because going all the way back to Madame Zatska and her era, is that it's all fake. Even Houdini, disproved most of the psychics during the heyday of the psychic mediums and all that were all fake. So we're still, tainted by that legacy. So these people that put the stuff online, we should all just go after them as much as we can to show that we are not kooks. We're not ready to believe just anything. We want to find the truth. Here's a perfect example. Josh Gates, who did Destination Truth on the Sci-Fi Channel. In 2005, I think it was, he was in the Himalayas and found what was a giant Yeti-like footprint in the mud. He did a cast of it. He held it up for pictures and all of that, and it was a big deal. In 2011, it was later than that, 2015, sorry. He went back to the Himalayas and did on his new show on the Travel Channel, what was it, Destination Unknown. He did another 3-part investigation in the Himalayas and found another footprint. And the local Himalayan papers took the old picture and put it up in the newspaper as the new print. They made a mistake. But everybody used that to say he was a charlatan and a liar. And it was the same footprint. Now, the mistake was noted, and it was a new, a redaction was put in, and a statement of apology was put out in the paper, local Himalayan paper that carried it. But nobody carried that. To this day, you go look online, and it's still saying that he faked the second footprint.
I understand the whole purpose of that. I do. I mean, some people will do anything for their 15 minutes of fame, no matter what it is. But do you think these people who are creating this disinformation actually know what they are doing with a lot of the public?
I don't think they think about it. I think it's about hits on YouTube. Just like if you go on any of the peer-to-peer networks where they trade, in the torrent sites, every pirated movie, they put a name next to it. They have a hacker name, and they fight for who gets the most downloads, who has the best sound, who has the best video quality from taping in a movie theater. So, the hackers want to get, like Anonymous just put out that NASA, knows there's alien life on planets already. They have some kind of proof that they're not telling us. Now, I don't know if that's real or not, but the thing is that Anonymous wants the hits. They want the followers. Because everything today, for me, if someone friends me on Facebook or likes something that I do, I think it's cool, but I don't judge my worth by it. I'm Generation X, so I'm a little of another generation, but I was alive when this stuff wasn't around, so it doesn't mean as much to me. But for kids today, my God kids, forget it. I mean, they all compete for likes and friends and all that stuff. And that's what these things, that's what they want. Because everybody wants to get a channel on YouTube where you're getting 1 million hits and you can get advertising and make some money.
No, I fully understand that. I can fully agree with that. that would be, money being the factor. I mean, money can be the root of all evil, and why not step on people's toes? I mean, the people who know it's fake are going to view it just to say, you know what, that looks pretty cool, that looks pretty intense. And other people are going to say, oh, that's real. That's what's going on. I get that.
I mean, they focus so much on the footprint that he found in the mud, but I mean, when he was up on Mount Everest, he had a drone, Josh Gates, fly over the glacial field where you go up to Base Camp 2, and he found giant footprints in the snow. There's no humans out there. Nobody was walking out there. What the hell was walking out there? And who has a big foot like that? You could see it right from the drone. The drone focused right in on it. They don't put that on the air. Now, I'm not saying that's a Yeti, but what the hell is it?
Gail has a question for you. She said, Ian, I read that Michael Crichton used to take his pulse when he was writing scary things. Do you have a technique for gauging the fright level of your work?
I work on a little more scientific way of doing it. My method is, long time ago I read this article about the brain and the flight or fight response, and I learned that before we move in a flight or fight response, because we weren't the top of the food chain way back when, hundreds of thousands of years ago, we listened for sound. So sound affects us first. If you watch carefully Halloween, which is a great example because John Carpenter was a master of this, when Michael comes into the scene, before the kill, right before he jumps out, it's like a split second. If you slow it down frame by frame, you'll hear the sound before Michael shows up. That sets you up for the scare. And there are all types of scares. There are the regular jump out scare where the cat jumps out or the bird jumps out, right? But the real stuff is like in the fog. This is what when I go back from my college, NYU, this is what I preach. Watch The Fog, the scene on the boat where Jamie Lee Curtis and Tom Atkins, and he's telling the ghost story. And the locker is behind Jamie Curtis. And the locker, while the story's going on, she's listening intensely to Tom Atkins. The handle on the locker is moving, right? And we're focused and it's a wide shot, cutting to close-ups back and forth between the two of them, and he tells a story. And you're not really focusing on the locker, but you see it in the background, this little handle going back and forth. So you're focused on the locker. Now, she leans forward at the end of the story, and the locker pops open, and we were expecting that scare, and all the charts fall out. Everybody laughs. They laugh on screen at themselves, and then she moves, and the locker falls aside, and the guy with his eyes gouged out, the body falls forward. Huge scare because no one was expecting it. So when I write, I set up what I call, early in the film, I'll do the single scare. Then I'll do the double scare, and then the triple scare, where you're using misdirection and you focus on one thing while something else happens on the other side of the screen. And you build your scares across the movie, because I understand how the brain works. If you're looking here and you have a scare that's not really a scare, like it's just the charts fall out, your brain relaxes. Then you have the and the body fall. That's when you really get scared because you're not expecting it at all.
We only got about 90 seconds left with you here before we got to go to our first break, Ian. Do you think that we are just seeing the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this disinformation, or do you think that eventually it will phase out and go the way of the dodo because people are just sick of it?
It'll only phase out when the real... Because there's always going to be people that want attention. There's always going to be people like that. You know, they want their 15 minutes of fame. And today, there's so many ways to get that few minutes of fame, get your name in the paper. I mean, don't you think that guy who put up that video of the planet has looked himself up on the internet everywhere and has all this stuff printed out and framed on his walls? Of course he does. You know, and, you know, how great a joker he is. Other people do this stuff, you know, hoping to get work in film. You know, you see that too. Look at the CGI I did. So I think the jokers will always be there.
Absolutely. Ian,
you know, and part of it is making fun of us too. They're laughing at us when they do this.
Exactly. Ian, I'm going to get you to hold on here because we are going to hop out for our first break of the night. Ian Holt is our guest, award-winning author, movie producer, and a big fan of Spaced Out Radio, and we're a fan of his. Ian comes on every 2 months to talk about all things paranormal. We're going to get into some world mysteries in hour number 2. It's going to be a lot of fun, so stick around. More Ian Holt right after this on Spaced Out Radio. Coming September 29th to October 1st, the first annual Spaced Out Radio Caribou Paracon. Hi, this is Dave Scott. The event will be held at the Spruce Hills Spa and Resort in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Come join us for an amazing weekend of speakers talking all things paranormal, UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Sasquatch, intuitiveness. Listen to great speakers like Miriam Delicato, Samantha Mowat, and the crypto guru Ronald Murphy. Get your VIP passes by going to spacedoutradio.com and clicking on the Paracon banner. Come to BC, where the paranormal is waiting for you.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Hey, this is Canadian paranormal investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our Advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio Live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we bring in the crew. We are going to be doing the SOR Roundtable. We do it the final Friday of every month. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. Hey, we want to welcome in everyone listening in at WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are also live on KTLK, the Fringe FM, the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Cacodemonomania. Cacodemonomania is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you could do so at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show. You could give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You could tune us in on TuneIn, download this show and others on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can go to our store, pick up a Spaced Out Radio t-shirt, poster, as well as some stickers. supporting the cause. And if you're looking for a weekend getaway this fall, September 29th to October 1st, Spaced Out Radio is presenting our first annual Caribou Paracon, hosted at the Spruce Hill Spa and Resort in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets, if you go to our store, are on sale for 10% off until July 31st. Now, on our website, you can also read up on the encounter online, our news section, and you could join the SOR Space Travelers Club for as little as $5 a month. Ian Holt is back, movie director, award-winning author. We're talking all things paranormal, strange, and weird. Ian, how you doing, man?
How you doing, Dave? Hello, everyone out there.
I'm always good, man. Always good. You know, we, in the first hour, were talking about disinformation. And it's getting a little frustrating because everybody keeps saying, show me proof. Show me proof of what is actually happening and what's going on. Yet there never seems, Ian, to be any quality proof anymore. We don't see the Patterson-Gimlin film. We don't see the Phoenix Lights type film anymore. In your opinion, how has today's medium of social media really ruined the opportunity of us getting any quality footage?
Well, I think we've moved to a different level now. I mean, we can't trust what our eyes are seeing because of the CGI and idiots that are out there. But that doesn't mean if you look out there, you know, that you're not going to find incredible stuff. Now, I am, first off, I just want to say to everyone, I don't know if you know this, but it's finally been released, and it is proven true, that the Phoenix Lights were first seen and called in by a famous actor flying his airplane with his son, his private plane, and that was Snake Plissken himself, Kurt Russell, was the first caller on the Phoenix Lights. Just throwing it out there. So Kurt Russell's with us. Now, about evidence. In India, right now, okay, they have an archaeological site. It's the city of Harappa. And it's it's just 10 miles west of Jodhpur, if I'm saying that right. The name of the area in India. Now, this site is special because it's supposedly, I believe, from 8,000 to 12,000 years ago. And it's irradiated. The skeletons, the buildings have high levels of radiation. Now, why is this? How do you have radiation at that time in those levels still? And isn't it interesting that the Mahabharata, which is an ancient Hindu text, talks about aliens, or in their case, gods, having a war in our heavens, and cities were blown out of the sky by what basically, with these mushroom clouds and all this, it sounds just like a nuclear war. Now, that kind of proof, that kind of discoveries is much more tangible than the video, the Patterson-Gimlin film, or you know, the Loch Ness Monster floating across the top of the water, because, or even the Phoenix Lights, because this is something tangible. This is stuff that's actually can touch, feel, and nobody can deny that it's there. What about the London Hammer found in London, Texas? It's encased in rock that's 140 million years old. There was a figurine found that's supposedly 2 million years old, carved figurine. No humans were around 2 million years ago. So we have these discoveries every day. I'm going to say it. I'm going to Antikythera mechanism, right? It's a computer that dates back to to ancient Greece. That it's a computer that figures out where all the stars are, the constellations are. Now, all these things that we're finding are tangible evidence, which is much greater proof than any video we see because of CGI and the fakers out there. And, you know, anyone can always say the videos always seem to be from really far away. And, you know, it always could be a man in a suit or what do you call those gunny suits, whatever they are, gurney suits, whatever they call those things for hunters that look like camouflage. So, I mean, the actual archaeological stuff that's being done now is really amazing. You know, and if there was a nuclear blast, you can say that caused tsunamis and this and that. I mean, they're finding under the ice in Antarctica the biggest crater ever that changes the force of gravity on the Earth. It's so big. And that was, I think that was almost 400 million years ago. Before, it times out to the first great mass extinction. So, I mean, we're finding stuff, actual proof now, you know, and all this new satellite technology that allows us to see through the ice and see through the Earth and all this stuff. We're finding new cities all the time, but they're not being investigated, and they're always put out the evidence why we shouldn't take it seriously, because no one wants to screw with the accepted history of man, because all the textbooks would have to be rewritten. Everything would have to change. And maybe we're not as smart as we think we are. So, or know as much as we think we do. I mean, look, the Sphinx is supposed to be, Edgar Casey said there's a chamber in the Sphinx that has all the surviving documents from the Library of Alexandria, which housed all the knowledge of our history as man. We do the sonar tests on the Earth, right? And we find there's a chamber there, exactly where Edgar Casey said it was. But no one will allow us to dig it up because it'll destabilize the Sphinx. If you are a fan of James Cameron, he did this incredible documentary called, where is it? I have it here. It's The Exodus Decoded, with historian and archaeologist Simca Jacobovici. Now, he puts out the theory that the Exodus of Egypt it's actually recorded, which we think happened under Ramses, but because of a misinterpretation of the ancient Hebrew language that the 5 books of Moses was written in, or the Torah, we get the date wrong. It actually happened, I believe it was 1500 BC. And that would put it right at the time of the Hyksos expulsion. Now, the Hyksos were mercenaries that were brought in by Ashkenazim, Tutankhamun's father, who got rid of all the multi-gods and had single god. Now, if he brought in these mercenaries who were Israelites, and the Hyksos were the Israelites, and they built this great city for them because they fought for Egypt and were mercenaries, and they influenced Ashkenazim to have the single god. Well, that they found the city. We could go find out the truth, but Egypt won't let anyone excavate there. They closed it all down because they don't want to piss off the Palestinians, who are claiming that they were there first and there was no King David or King Solomon. It's all made up. So if there's proof there that there was a exodus, then that leads to more proof that the Palestinian claim that the Jews have no claim to their land, Palestine or Israel now, because the stories in the Bible are all made up. Same reason you can't search in the Temple Mount. So we can't find out the truth. Now, all this stuff, everything, the hammer, right? We no one wants the London hammer. No one wants to admit that you have people 140 million years ago walking around with skills. Yet every single almost ancient historical, mythology that we find talks about the gods created us, and then as almost like a slave race, and then there was a faction of the gods who gave us technology and learning and all this stuff, and helped us break the bonds of slavery that we were created for. And then that faction that helped us was defeated and vilified. That's the same story as God and Satan. It's the same story we hear in the Hindu text, in the Sanskrit text of Mesopotamia. It's the same story over and over again. And it all ends with a flood that wiped almost everyone out. The flood myth is all across ancient history, all different versions, but it's still the flood myth. Now, we're finding more and more that there's evidence of this, and we as a species go back much further than we thought, and we had skills back then. And then after the flood, we didn't. So, but no one wants to investigate this, and they shun away from it because the idiots like the guy with the planet in the sky and the alternate universe Earth.
I got a question from Tripp in the chat room here. He is asking, what's your thoughts, Ian, on Graham Hancock's timeline of ancient civilizations then?
Graham Hancock is a hero of mine. I think that guy, there's a few scientists and thinkers that are daring enough to come out with these theories and talk about different timelines of things and how they see it. I mean, that the pyramids are 10,000 and the Sphinx is 10,000 years old, not 5,000. And they are thrown out of every legitimate institution and university and everything else. But guys like Graham Hancock, who look at it very seriously, Eric von Daniken, Giorgio Tsoukalos, these guys, they present alternate theories. And we need these people to come out like this, legitimate people to come out. And Graham Hancock may not be right, he could be wrong, but the fact that he's willing to question the dogma that seems to be constantly questions keep coming up about the standard history of who and what we are. I mean, it was only a decade ago when we figured out that the Neanderthals were not part of our lineage, that they were a separate species of human, and we intermarried with, had intercourse with cross-special intercourse, that we have some Neanderthal DNA in us, but they were a completely different lineage that died out. We know that there were many walking ape species now. It's entirely possible that, we look at people like the Asians or Africans that have different color skin or different eyes or whatever, that these different lineages crossbred to create the different races. And we are all family because we know that there was a bottleneck in our DNA. We have the proof of the genetic Adam and Eve. But when we say that, even that's wrong. That's when the scientists say that, because the genetic Adam and Eve and the bottleneck had to come after the flood. So they're discounting the flood when they bring forth this evidence, because anything from the Bible has got to be, false history. And if we know this, then we're all related and we're all the same. So the fact that someone has a different skin color or different eyes doesn't mean that they're a different species or a lesser species or all this nonsense about race we hear. the more we discover, the more it was there were a number of different upright walking apes that evolved, and we evolved over 250,000 years, where every other creature on the planet evolved over hundreds of millions of years. So no one can answer that question, why? Why did we evolve faster? And what happened to the other races, the other species? Sorry, you know, we are basically a bastardized end result of a number of different species interbreeding. We are not a pure race. So, you know, when you hear the Nazis or the white supremacists about the pure blood, it's nonsense, because we're not. We're all basically one big family. So, because of the bottleneck in the Adam and Eve, and that's proven genetically. So, more and more we find out about our histories that, you know, we all came out of Africa. Not really. Sub-Saharan, excuse me. We all came out of Sub-Saharan Africa. That's not true. They now find evidence of us in North Africa and maybe even in Asia. You know, so, I mean, what our true history is, how we cross the continents, is not really set anymore. And the fact that we won't look at this evidence drives me crazy. I mean, and look, I have no problem with real skeptics. You know, people that bring up questions or don't want to believe, like the hammer. They're saying the hammer is not the London hammer is not 140 million years old, because the type of mineral rock that it's in can grow by water dripping and all kinds of stuff, that it grew around the hammer over time. So the rock is 140 million years old, but not the hammer. Okay, that sounds like a legitimate, you know, counter argument. Now go do the science. Let's find out. But nobody wants to touch it, because if the hammer's real, well, just like that little figurine they found that proves people were around and carving stuff with tools 2 million years ago, everything gets blown up. Can't have that.
Of course not. So when you look at things, okay, let's take these mysterious artifacts that you are very, very prevalent on. There seems to be like this hammer that, I mean, it looks like a sledgehammer they would use on creating the railroad during the 1800s and early 1900s, but apparently it's like half a billion years old or something along those lines. It's ridiculous.
It's 140 million years old, and it's actually, the pictures are deceiving. It's actually small, like a rock hammer for sculpting rock. And the handle, made of wood, is almost coal. So it had to be in the ground for a really long time. And we know that 10,000 years ago, Texas was covered in ice. So the fact that it's buried so deep in the earth, when they found it, they were building a foundation, and they found this thing in London, Texas. Well, even if it's not 140 million years old, it's older than any kind of record of people using tools. It had to be there before the Ice Age.
I get that, Ian. I get that it went right through the Ice Age and everything like that. But does this not put into question what carbon dating is all about?
Yes. Now, here's the problem with carbon dating. The people that subscribe to it, whenever something's carbon dated, that doesn't fit the timeline, they go, oh, maybe there was a fire, or, it was doused in coal, and, or something, right? They come up with some excuse. When it works for them, and it doesn't work for our stories, that the timeline is wrong, oh, well, then they support the carbon dating too. You can't have it both ways. Either carbon dating works or it doesn't. Now, the big thing about this city in India that was discovered, this ancient city, if there were nuclear blasts, then you have things being irradiated across the planet because of your radiation clouds. So if there was nuclear energy going way back when, then all carbon dating is wrong. The numbers are wrong. the implications of this site in India, it calls into question all carbon dating. I mean, they're dating stuff that now is in the future. When they date stuff from that area, it says it has so much carbon that it was in the future. Well, that's because it's so irradiated, it had so much carbon and irradiated in a way that the carbon which they have to break down the carbon according to the radiation testing. They use radioactive materials to date the carbon, the radioactive decay of the carbon. So if carbon was introduced into it through a nuclear blast, then it makes it seem it still has too much carbon to be in the past, so it looks like it's in the future. So how do you date this stuff? If the carbon dating can be screwed with by fire or by radiation, then everything's in question. Maybe we were around 2 million years ago. You know, we look at Punko, which we say can't be, the stones are too perfectly carved for the period that we date it to. And the place looks like a nuclear bomb went off there. Now, the ancient astronaut theorists think that was an alien base. It was created as an alien base. Now, even if it wasn't, let's say, okay, aliens are too much for you? Okay. So ancient humans had the ability to do this, but you date the site to a time when we didn't have the tools. So maybe the carbon dating is wrong. Now, what could cause the destruction of Pumapunko? Well, it's either got to be a flood, it's a massive flood, or a nuclear blast, or some kind of explosion, which would mean that we had gunpowder or dynamite or nitroglycerin back then. Any way you look at it, something's not right. Something's not kosher. Something stinks in Denmark. I mean, so they just roll over it. Oh, people pried it apart and took stones. Yet all the pieces are there when they do the laser scanning of everything. They put the pieces back together, and almost the whole site is there. There's only a couple of blocks missing. So how do you, in the computer, they put it back together, not on the site. But how do you explain that? If people raided the site and broke it apart to get stone, why is the whole thing still there?
Hey, Ian, I got a couple of questions. Ian, I got a couple of questions coming off of Twitter, if you don't mind.
Sure.
This one from Andrew. He is asking, Ian, are you then a creationist, or are you believing in, evolution?
First off, there is no separation between creationism and evolution. That is a myth created by political people who want to create an issue for getting people elected, a conservative versus liberal issue. It's not. To try and separate them is crazy. And here's why. When the Bible was written, it was written in Aramaic, which is a dead language. And King James, who did the modern version of the Bible, misinterpreted the Aramaic. He wrote, on the first day God created the heavens and the earth, on the second day God did. That's not what it says. The original translation of the Aramaic is, in the first age, not day, age, God created the heaven and the earth. So this idea that we have no idea what the age is, how long is an age? We don't know. So it could be 5,000 years, like they say, or 25 million years. We don't know. It's in the first age. Just like the contradictions in the Bible about killing has driven people, to write volumes on this. But the commandment does not say, thou shalt not kill. The actual Aramaic translation is, thou shalt not commit murder, which is why the Cain and Abel story is so important. Cain killed Abel. You're not supposed to kill, but you can have a war. Joshua knocking down the city of Jericho, the walls of Jericho, and all of that. There's an eye for an eye. it puts the whole Bible, Old and New Testament, in a totally different light when the commandment is thou shalt not commit murder. Completely different. But we still hold on to the King James translations, even though a lot of it has been proven wrong. I mean, what James Cameron and Simca Jacobovici, I'm going to get that name right one day, says about the misinterpretation of the dates of how things are played out in the Bible because of ancient Hebrew, which was translated from the Aramaic, again, wrong. And, well, it wasn't translated wrong. We're reading it wrong because of the way the Hebrew words, symbols and things work. You should see the documentary. They get into it. It's very technical. But the idea is that our mistakes create a lot of problems. So for me, I mean, even the Big Bang Theory was created. The theory was created by a Catholic priest who was a astrologer at the Vatican and was approved by the Pope, because the Pope said, okay, we can't know what happened 1 second before the Big Bang. So was it a chemical reaction or the finger of God? That's where faith comes in. So for me, to me, there's just history. And that history is if you're a person of faith, then it's God. If you're an agnostic like I am, who believes in God but not in religion, I don't subscribe to any one religion, but I believe in God, but that I'm open to the idea that the God that we know from the Bible could be a advanced alien race. I'm okay with that. If that's what it is, I'm open to it. So that's my theory on history. I mean, we can debate. There's people that debate the legitimacy of the Catholic Church because, was Jesus on his Sermon on the Mount said you could pray directly to God and have a personal relationship with God. Just believe in me, accept me as your Lord and Savior, and all this stuff. And the original Christians prayed to the sign of the fist, not the cross, in their basements in Rome. So, I mean, there's you can question all kinds of theological stuff, but I never questioned someone's faith. I mean, that to me is the line I don't cross, because while I don't subscribe to the religions, I respect the religions. So it becomes, I don't believe there's a question between science and history. Because if we say, okay, there was no man at the time of the dinosaurs, and creationists seem to think that the dinosaurs walked with man, and we've found certain sites that have human footprints next to, fossilized dinosaur footprints. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what that means. I'm not going to say one way or the other because the research, it's not conclusive yet. But we find more and more that the stories of the Bible, the soul, the heaven and hell, alternate dimensions that are hidden by dark matter or dark energy in the universe, alternate universes, which Einstein predicted. All these things fit. The science fits. We're catching up to the science of the Bible all the time. So I don't think there's a question of creationism and evolution. I think the timelines are screwed. More evidence to that than anything else.
I got another question coming off of Twitter here, my friend. This one comes from one of our brand new listeners, Michelle. She is asking, what are your thoughts then on negative blood types?
Oh, you mean the alien, that the green eyes? Well, I again, this is a genetic record. We have a number of different lineages that intermingled and crossbred to create modern man. So why isn't it not impossible, since we have a lot of stories of the Nephilim, or the fallen angels, the Watchers, mating with human women. Now, those stories go into the Bible. You know, we had the race of giants and all of that. Goliath. It seems to me that it could be possible that one lineage of our species was a hybrid, crossbred species. It could also be that we were genetically engineered and in vitro fertilization on another experiment. I mean, it seems that there were a number of different ways we were created, and we have junk DNA. What's all the junk DNA that's in us that doesn't mean anything? Is that alien DNA left over for the past experiments? I mean, it seems to be that the more we learn scientifically, the more questions are raised. And the green eyes and negative blood types is just another question that doesn't fit the accepted history. So why aren't we studying it?
I get that. I understand when it comes to blood and aliens. I mean, there seems to be some sort of intrigue when it comes to the two. Do you not think that this is just an unproven theory of whether or not blood has anything to do, or blood type has anything to do with extraterrestrial contact, whether it's ancient or whether it's current?
Well, I think the junk DNA and the green eyes and negative blood types in the genetic record of when we did the Human Genome Project that Clinton funded, where we mapped the human DNA, it raises many questions about how we evolved. Now, these questions you can either force into the standard evolutionary timeline and try and explain it away, which everyone tries to do, because they don't want to accept another theory, which really boggles my mind. I mean, scientists should be explorers. And these answers that were given are not definitive. I mean, it's just someone's theory that we say, okay, that makes sense, we'll use that. Now, the genetic code would suggest that we were screwed with some way genetically. Now, whether that be by God or alien, I don't know. But it sure is strange that we evolved over 250,000 years, according to this record, where everyone else evolved over hundreds of millions of years, every other creature on the planet. Why are we different? Now, if you're a person of faith, you say, okay, we were created by God in his image, and that's where it comes from. But who or what is God is the ultimate question. Is he an omnipotent being or an alien, a highly sophisticated alien leader? I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's the question. That's the question of our existence, isn't it? Think about, where do we go when we die? I've had experiences with ghosts. Okay, so I know there's life after death. I'm convinced of it. I've had conversations with ghosts through divining rods. I've told the story many times on the show. 25-minute conversation back and forth. So for me, and that's just one example, but I've had many. So for me, life after death happens. Now, all energy in the universe, we're all made of stars, and all energy in the universe is recycled. So the idea that we go through some kind of wormhole portal, or whatever you want to call it, energy transition to another dimension, and our souls, because again, science says that an electromagnetic field can hold data, which was our memories, because our brains hold all memories like data in a computer, only an organic computer. So if that can survive death, and you could have an intelligent conversation with a ghost that doesn't transition to a spirit into the next life, the next life could be in another dimension. And we know there are other dimensions out there, and there's so much more matter in the universe that we can't see. We call it dark matter. But those could be representations of heaven and hell. And this whole idea of if you're a bad person, you go to hell. If you're a good person, you go to heaven. Well, there's science behind that if you want to walk beyond faith. When we do bad things, our conscience, even subliminally, takes on guilt. Now, that guilt could create negative ions in our aura, which we can see. In certain types of film, you can see your aura. So we know there's energy in us, and the aura changes based on how we're feeling about ourselves. Now, if you take on enough guilt, which is the whole idea of confession to get rid of the guilt in the Catholic religion, or, Yom Kippur in the Jewish religion, right? If you have enough negative energy, maybe you're sucked into hell, which for some reason, which we don't understand, attracts negative energy. We know there's positive and negative forces, fighting for control of the universe. If you feel good about yourself when you die, maybe you transition to heaven. I mean, it's scientific theories that positive and negative ions attract and blah, blah, blah. But there are theories that explain all this in science that are proven more and more every day. I mean, we have at the superconductor in Sweden been able to create particles that come in and out of existence. We're not sure where they go yet, but the theory is they move to another dimension. They can move between dimensions. So these God particles, as they call them, that appear and disappear, it's the root of a transition from our life to some other sort of life in another dimension or somewhere else. So the science is catching, like I said, science is catching up to the Bible. Now, whether you believe in, St. Peter at the pearly gates, that's faith. And faith may just be, like all mythology, an explanation in ancient times for man that didn't have the technology that we have today to explain things he couldn't understand. So he created this mythology. Or it could be just as the Bible says.
Intriguing. Are there any other artifacts that are making you wonder about the whole carbon dating? We touched on that just a few minutes ago, then we kind of got off topic. But I'm wondering if you've studied any other artifacts that really make you question what is real and what is not.
The Shroud of Turin. I mean, we can't accurately date the Shroud of Turin because the samples that they gave us twice now, from the clean section of the cloth and the part that was scorched in the fire at the church where it was being held in the, I think it was 15 or 1400s. But we can't accurately date it. The dating is all off. Everybody believes that. So again, it comes down to a question of faith, and church said we're not going to put it up for any more testing until the science evolves. Now, one way that you look at the cloth at the Shroud of Turin, and it's an X-ray. And if you're going to bring someone back to life, I mean, there would be some kind of release or sucking in of energy. So I find the disability of us to date the shroud because of the fire indicative of a problem with carbon dating around the world. If something doesn't work for one thing, how can you take as gospel every other date? The system either works or it doesn't. And for me, I just can't accept as dogma the carbon dating of sites because it doesn't fit the timeline. Now, another very interesting development. we hear these stories of the building of the pyramids and ancient sites, especially in the Mayan sites and the Aztec sites, of blocks being levitated. Now, we have in the Veda texts an explanation of anti-gravity spaceships that were involved in the battle in heaven and the nuclear war that shows up possibly in the India site with the irradiated skeletons. And in the Veda text, it describes the engine. It's a gyroscope with mercury and gold. Now, mercury is a superconductor. Now, we can't use mercury, but we have other superconductors now. So when you take a superconductor and attach magnetism to it, it's anti-gravity. And they've created this machine in small scales that a magnet can fly over rails, magnetic rails, that use a superconductor when you put energy into it, electricity. You hook it up to a battery or into the wall socket, and you put electricity into the mercury, and that makes this magnet fly over the rails. So we now have discovered the first proof that the Veda texts are basically telling the truth, that these anti-gravity devices are a possibility. So now you're saying that, well, if you put a weight on that magnet, a stone, if you have the right rail systems and all that, you could move these stones with electromagnetic energy because anti-gravity. And that's another great discovery. Nobody's talking about it. So, I mean, the more and more we delve into this, more and more the science is matching the mythology. And maybe it's not mythology at all. Maybe it's an actual record of history. So there's constantly new things being discovered.
So do you think the Shroud of Turin then was that of Jesus Christ? Because I'll tell you, Barry Schwartz likes to laugh about this. I've had Barry Schwartz on this show a couple of times, and in the early 1980s, he was actually part of a scientific team that actually studied the Shroud of Turin. And as he likes to say it, for a small Jewish fellow who's not supposed to believe in Jesus Christ, he was 100% convinced that was on the Shroud.
I'm a believer. And I think why I believe it is because when you read the Gospels, there are 5 people that see Jesus. Now, the James Cameron documentary that will also at Simca Jacopovici states that the ossuaries of Jesus and his family that were found in his tomb in Israel are real. So that calls into question the fact that whether people saw a ghost or Jesus actually rose from the grave and ascended to heaven. That's a question of faith. But I don't think an entire religion could have started unless the 5 people that saw Jesus rise from the tomb actually told that story to people. And you know as well as I do, it's hard to get 5 people to agree on anything. To get 5 religious people who were religious Jews, but followers of, remember, Jesus was a rabbi. He was a Jewish rabbi. So these people were all Jews and very religious Jews. So for them to go out and lie to their own people to create a new religion, which wasn't their purpose, because the original followers of Jesus after the crucifixion stayed in Israel, and Jews who believed that Jesus was the Messiah, the promised Messiah. And him coming back to life was a sign that he would save them. And 200 years later, Christianity did help bring about the fall of Rome, right? 300 years later. So you're saying, so I find it very difficult to disavow the gospel and the science of the of the shroud, because no one has presented a adequate explanation, alternate explanation for how the image was created. And the fact that it looks like an X-ray and it's negative, it's a negative image, says to me, why would you create a negative image? If you were going to fake it, if there were no, we look at it now and go, oh, that was really just made it look like an X-ray, but X-rays didn't exist back then. So if you take yourself back to that period, why would that even be in somebody's head to do a negative image? That's the key to me, for me, that says there's something more to it.
Well,
because who would think of doing a negative image?
There's a couple things when we talk about the shroud that I was amazed to learn that I didn't know. That the blood has never dried. Some of the blood has never fully dried on that. And after a couple thousand years, you think that, you know, even being in a fire, which burnt the shroud, when a church that had it in the 1500s, you know, caught in flames, that blood would dry, and it was still damp. The other thing too was the fact that Barry Schwartz on this show stated that the injuries that were on that body were absolutely the same that happened to Jesus. So one of the things I find interesting about that is Jesus was one of the only ones ever on record, if not the only one, that the Roman Catholic soldiers didn't break their legs to hurry up and kill their prisoners, shall we say.
Right.
You know, so there's a lot of little nuances there that match up extremely well when it comes to
the other big one for me, the biggest one for me, hands down, is if this is a European forgery, Jesus was portrayed as a white man with blonde hair, light hair, and blue eyes in all the artwork of the period. Yet the face on the shroud has a wide nose, bigger lips. It's a Middle Eastern man's face. Why would an artist in Europe at the time, when everyone was saying Jesus is white, make a shroud forgery with a Middle Eastern man's face, facial features? Explain that to me.
I can't, Ian. I just can't. You know?
Curly hair, you know, I have bridge over the eyes, the wider nose, the bigger lips. I mean, it's so obviously a Middle Eastern man, that a person of color, that you have to look at it and go, that doesn't fit anywhere in Europe from the 1500s or even the 1300s. Jesus was never portrayed as a person of color in any artwork in Europe.
I fully agree. I got a question from Eric in the chat room. He is asking, Ian, what do you think about the theory then that Jesus was an extraterrestrial?
Well, think about it. I mean, if aliens were amongst us and they had in vitro fertilization, that would explain the Immaculate Birth, and Jesus' powers could be explained by, you know, even the CIA believed in certain extrasensory perceptions and other senses and abilities and all of that. They did tons of research on it. So to say that, you know, there have been healers throughout history, we know this, shamans. So if Jesus had some powers, let's say, well, regular humans don't have them, but maybe aliens do. You know, if they're hundreds of millions of years more advanced than us, or even millions of years, it's quite possible. Or they have a different physiology, different DNA structure that allows them to have certain powers. I mean, you know, I've seen people who drink blood who are vampires, real life vampires. They share blood, and their ability to sense emotion from other people, they knew what was going on in my head just by walking up to me. So I experienced this already for the idea. This goes back to all ancient cultures that eating human flesh or drinking human blood can give you powers. This has been proven by headhunting trials.
So that comes to question then, Ian. What do you think is hidden under the Vatican? Because there's a lot of speculation with that. I wonder if Ian accidentally put himself on hold. No, we lost Ian. We're going to try and get Ian right back here. You know what? It's actually pretty good timing because we are literally a minute away from break. Sometimes you got to love the cell phone technology. Let's see if he picks up quick here.
Hello.
Did your phone die? Did you have to plug it in?
I don't know what happened. No, I don't know what happened. It was just gone.
You know what? I know exactly what happened. You see, I got a bunch of people on Twitter right now that are bugging the living hell out of me about garden gnomes. So you know what? We're going to get to that question because we're only about 45 seconds away from break here, Ian. But I can tell you right now, I'm blaming the Twitterites at #SpacedOutRadio for your phone cutting out because they summoned the garden gnomes. And the garden gnomes,
the gremlins.
Well, I'm going to say it's the garden gnomes because they know I'm not a fan. They know I'm not a fan. So I'm pretty sure that they have sacrificed. It's garden gnomes galore. They're bugging the living daylights out of me. They're all laughing at us right now, all because old Davey here has his sphincter tight over the damn garden gnome thought. Anyhow, we're going to break. We are going to break here on Spaced Out Radio. Ian Holt will be back with us. Eric, he's going to get back to your question after that as well. So you guys stick tight right here on the mighty SOR. We will be right back. Karen Smurl, I see you. I see you in the chat room. Good to have you with us. Thank you so much for showing on up. I'll be right back. Looking for a great weekend getaway this fall? Hi there, this is Dave Scott. Come on up to the heart of British Columbia for the first annual Spaced Out Radio Caribou Paracon, being held at the Spruce Hills Spa and Resort in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Speakers from all over North America are coming to discuss Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, and intuitiveness for the 3-day event, September 29th to October 1st. For more information, go to spacedoutradio.com and click on the Caribou Paracon banner and book your tickets today. Come to BC, where the paranormal is waiting for you.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 Mediums and a Large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we get into the SOR Roundtable. I bring in some friends, we discuss some really cool topics, and none of us will actually know the questions, so we're going to go off the cuff, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. Now, I want to thank everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us as well. We're live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Cacodemonomania. Cacodemonomania is your password. It sounds fun to say. Try it with me. Cacodemonomania. Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show as well. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can tune us in on TuneIn, download this show and others on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can also head over to our Spaced Out Radio store, pick yourself up a t-shirt, posters, stickers, and if you're looking for a weekend getaway this fall, September 29th to October 1st, we have the first annual Caribou Paracon being put on by this show. It's being held at beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia, at the Spruce Hills Spa and Resort. I would absolutely love for all of you to attend. Come hang out with us weirdos of SOR. It's going to be a great time indeed. Tonight, we bring in Ian Holt. For the final time tonight, Ian, a master of everything paranormal and ancient when it comes to research. That's why we have him on every 2 months, because every time we do this, Ian just blesses us with some great information on topics that he has studied. He's also got a movie coming out this fall starring Mickey Rourke called Unhinged. Ian, welcome back.
Hey, Dave. Hey, everyone.
Right before the
break.
break.
Phone issues worked out. Yeah,
these damn gnomes. You know, and I wish the people on Twitter wouldn't have done that, because now I'm getting nailed on every chat room with gnome pictures and gnome comments and all sorts of crap. You know, they love to torture me. They love to torture me around here, but that's okay. I don't mind. Yes, I see what you did there, Marley, or Marley, because you got one of them accent aigus on your E. I see what you're doing. It's terrible. The rudeness and the crassness of my audience. Hitting me with garden gnomes everywhere. You know I hate those things. Ian, right before the break, you got cut out due to the gnomes. Your phone went dead. Eric had asked a question in regards to what do you think of the theory of the fact that Jesus Christ, as some say, was an alien himself.
Well, let's go back to science. CIA did massive experiments on, extrasensory perception and all kinds of bending spoons and with your mind and all this. Shamans can heal. You know, we've heard these things throughout history. We also know that we only use 30% of our brain. Now, we have this junk DNA that some people think if you turn it on, we're going to have more powers in our brain. So if you think that we are evolved from an alien experiment across hybrid DNA, splicing, whatever, they would shut off the parts of the brain of our brain that is similar to theirs, or more evolved and advanced, maybe, or just naturally use more of their brains. That they wouldn't want us to have these powers if we were slaves. We want them to know what any possibility of being equal to them. So even in my studies, I met with vampires, real life vampires, that when they drink blood, they have a remarkable ability to sense emotion. You know, they knew how I was feeling about things just by walking up to me. You know, and they would, they knew basically emotions that I was like laying down. You know, if I was having a down day, they'd know it. So I've experienced it. We know that Native American cultures forever, the cannibals or the headhunters, that even the tribes that were found cut off from all civilization in the Amazon in the 70s. They were little guys, because of the people of the native peoples were shorter, but they had the ability, the strength to lift things. They were twice as strong as us, and all this, which goes along with the native legends of eating human flesh. So we know that they have a resistance to disease, where other cultures came in contact with us and died because they didn't have immunity. These native peoples didn't get sick, and that's part of the law. So we know that there are possibilities of powers beyond what we now perceive. So let's take that now and put it to Jesus. You would have an immaculate conception, which could easily be in vitro fertilization. And then if he was an alien hybrid, we know that the Nephilim, the Watchers, there are all these stories of the fallen angels, which could be aliens that then, or maybe, they wanted to control us in a way. I mean, they gave Moses a staff, the theory might go, and then they gave Jesus actual powers because he was a hybrid. I mean, it fits the story. And if they could somehow, with their technology, resurrect him using some kind of radiation, there's the shroud. So it all fits the theories that, because Jesus was a human, that we have in the historical record from a number of different historians that he actually existed, we know that. But the fact, that doesn't mean that the ancient alien theory is negated by his existence. It actually could either prove it or disprove it. It's not conclusive one way or the other. So I don't discount it out of hand that he was possibly an alien. I mean, it fits.
I'm not buying it. Maybe it's because I am a creationist. I have no problem admitting that. But I'm not buying it. That's just me. I have no proof. Just a gut feeling. And I'm going with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's open. I mean, whichever way you believe, or if you just want to stand on the fence, there is no right or wrong answer. It's by your faith and what you believe. But again, we shouldn't discount the science. We should investigate these things. What is our junk DNA? Why is it there?
I got a couple of questions in the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook. Gail is asking, Ian, have you also studied all the Old Testament prophecies about the Messiah that Jesus fulfilled? There are over 350.
Well, in general, I've gone through them, and these prophecies, what about Nostradamus? I mean, Edgar Casey. I mean, there have been prophets who have seen into the future, and we could interpret Nostradamus a lot of ways, but Casey was more specific. But whatever you think, the prophecies of Jesus, don't fit, and yet they do fit. Everyone thought Jesus was going to be a warrior, that was going to lead the revolt against Rome. But it didn't happen that way. Through peace, he conquered Rome. Through faith, Rome became Christian. So, I mean, these prophecies, while not always 100% accurate, there's always an interpretation of them that allows them to be found, or allows them to be interpreted as true. So the idea that Jesus fulfills the prophecies, well, you could say, was the prophet seeing, the future, or were they just guesses, or just beliefs? There, in the Jewish faith, we disregard Jesus as the Messiah. We look at him as a prophet, as in the Muslim faith, and a rabbi in the Jewish faith. So we still hold out that the prophet is coming. So whether Jesus returns and proves he was the Messiah, or another Messiah rises after the Antichrist is revealed? We'll see. But again, there's no proof one way or the other. So faith versus, opinion, it doesn't matter because it's what you believe. I mean, the idea of prophecy is as old as time. I mean, you go to a fortune teller, sometimes they tell you something that really happens, and you're like, wow, and sometimes it's all nonsense. So what is there? We don't do research into the psychic abilities, mediums, and all that. But, I've sat with Lorraine Warren, and her abilities are remarkable. You can't tell me there's not something as a medium or psychic. I've seen it. So the idea that we can do certain things, I think is pretty much in a way proven. So the prophecies of the Bible make sense to what we've seen in other situations. So if Jesus fulfilled all these things, then he very well could have been the Messiah that we all talk about. For someone who comes from a perspective of faith, it works. And someone that comes from a perspective of paranormal or science, it could also work.
Another question coming from the SOR Space Travelers Club, this one coming from Danny, who is asking, Ian, what is your historic interpretation of the Ark of the Covenant and its said powers then?
Well, you either can believe that its powers are derived from the power of God, or you can believe that it was given to us by aliens and it's a mechanism. Now, if the skeptics on the Indian site, or the India site with the irradiated skeletons, are saying the amount of radiation that's there is too high to account for a nuclear weapon. Well, what if it's a more advanced nuclear weapon? And if that power existed, then could you make it into, somehow put it into some kind of ray or nuclear ray in some way? I don't know. I mean, it's possible that the Ark is actually a weapon, and, it was given to the followers of the one God, which we could interpret as the dictator or king of an alien race that was much more scientifically advanced. Now, everything in the Bible that happened, from the wheels of Ezekiel all the way, to the powers of the Ark of the Covenant, is all feasible within science. Now, you can even go to the 10 plagues of Egypt, which we say is Ramses, happened in Ramses' time. According to James Cameron and Simca Jacobovici, it happened during the times of I'll get the name right, Amosa, the Pharaoh Amosa, which means son of Moses, brother of Moses, which makes sense to the Bible again. Now, we all, every time we look, there's an alternate explanation of things. So if Ashkenazin, Tut's father, looks strange in all his portrayals, all his carvings of the way he looks like a hybrid person. You look at his eyes, his belly, his everything. He's all weird looking, and there was no impressionistic paintings in ancient Egypt. They did everything in a realistic portrayal in art. So why is Ashkenaz portrayed differently? Why is his skull elongated? Why does we find skulls without the cranial sutures? And other people wrap skulls to extend the skulls. So it's quite possible that Ashkenazin was a hybrid, an early type of hybrid. Maybe that his type of hybrid was through intercourse, and Jesus came out more human because it was in vitro. I mean, the science is all there. So why can't we, if Ashkenazin was a hybrid, and the aliens were involved in our history, and the Hyksos people worship the one God, just like Ashkenazin, it would make sense that they would take them out of bondage because they were the followers of this alien god or king or dictator, wherever you want to put it, and he bestowed upon them a weapon to conquer a homeland where they would worship the one God, which would be that alien. So, I mean, the story fits. The technology is possible. We are finding out more and more about lasers and power of harnessing the power of energy waves and things like that. That it's possible at some point we could create, like the Bible describes. We're also finding out the power of sound. That certain sound waves can create damage. So maybe that's what dropped. It was some kind of sonic weapon. We're using sonic weapons now. So all this stuff is, as long as it exists in some way in science, I think it's possible. And once it's possible, the story of the origin could be mythology, faith, or science. And that's what we get to decide until someone figures it out and gets the actual proof. But if you're asking me, does the archaeology back it up? Well, yeah, more and more. One time they thought Sodom and Gomorrah didn't exist, and then we find Sodom and Gomorrah. They thought Troy didn't exist, too. They found Troy. So, again, we only know what we know, and there's so much, it seems, that we don't know. And we fill in the blanks with the stuff that makes it easiest for us to digest. And I think the idea that we accept all this stuff isn't in our nature. We're explorers. We always have been. We want to know more. Whether you believe that's because we ate from the fruit of the tree of knowledge and it's the original sin, or it's just our nature to be explorers. Whatever it is, it's part of who we are. And anytime that's stifled, I think it's a shame.
Gail has a question. She says, Ian, you know your stuff. Are you self-taught or do you have an advanced degree in this?
I have no degree in it. What happened to me was when I was a kid, the Tutankhamun exhibit was huge to see Martin was doing King Tut on Saturday Night Live and all of that. And I got extremely interested in history. And when I was a freshman at college, ecstasy had just come out. My friends came over to my dorm, and they gave me a tab. We went to the Museum of Natural History. Now, I can't tell you whether it was because I had tried ecstasy one time or whatever it was, but there was a temple that was saved from the shores of the Nile and brought to the Metropolitan Museum, Museum of Natural History in New York. And I walked into this temple, and I had this, I can't even explain it. It was like I touched the wall, and it was like I'd been there. It was so intense that I really didn't know what it was until years later when I started reading about past life regression and all of that. And if you ask me today, I think I lived in the 1400s and for sure somewhere in ancient Egypt, because it's been such a quest for me. And that quest led me from Tutankhamun to Ashkenazin, to the anomaly of Ashkenazin, to the stories of the way he looked and why he looked that way, which led me to Eric Von Daniken and Chariots of the Gods, and that opened the door for me to start reading. So I'm self-taught. I gobble this stuff down like everything I can get my hands on, and because they don't teach it in school. But for me, I've always loved history, especially certain periods of history. And the more I read, when I read the alternate history, it's a extension of my discoveries. Like they say, Caesar was a vile dictator, or, took over Rome. But if you really read, he was part of the Gracchi Revolution, who believes in giving power back to the people and getting rid of the senators that were all in cahoots with the businessmen and all wealthy men. And he put common people in the Senate and tried to give control back to the people. Now, that they don't really teach you about. They teach you about crossing the Rubicon and all that. And these inconsistencies in history, like Paul Revere did not do the Midnight Ride. It was another guy. When they say black people weren't around, in the Revolution, they were slaves. Well, the first guy that died for the American Revolution was Crispus Attucks, a black man at the Boston Massacre. He was the first man to die for the United States. When you go to Revolutionary burial grounds, you have Muslim graves and you have Hebrew Jewish graves. Don't tell me that the United States doesn't belong to all these races and religions. So when you start reading and you find that all this stuff, what we're taught, is wrong, well, that intrigues me to read further. What else is wrong? So that's how it got started for me. It's like Alice going down a rabbit hole, and you just keep going down. As the more you read, the more you learn. And it's all fascinating stuff to pull back from and use in my screenplays.
Interesting question here, and it's kind of off topic, but I think Eric asks a relevant question considering we're all over the map here in regards to strange mysteries. There's a lot of question as to what black-eyed kids are. Are they demonic? Are they alien? Are they just kids on drugs with their pupils that are extremely diluted? What do you think they are?
Wow. They could be a lot of things. I mean, the eyes have always been called the windows of the soul. And black eyes, have been interpreted for the eyes of angels. Angels, as we see them in TV and in art, are not these benevolent creatures. They are fierce creatures. And I don't know if you've seen The Prophecy with Christopher Walken, but the idea that they have no eyes or black eyes is a interpretation of what we think they are because they don't have a soul. That's why they're jealous of us, that they're supposedly. Now, these black-eyed kids, are they possessed? Are they lacking a soul? I mean, it's very difficult to say what they are, but like everything, like the green eyes, negative blood types, the interesting point for me in this is that if you look at the gray aliens, they have big black eyes. Now, if we have alien DNA in us and mutation is part of evolution, well, is it possible that some of this junk DNA that we call junk DNA that we can't explain why it's there, someone's born with it? So it may be genetic, but it seems to fit the look of the gray aliens. It's a possibility.
I understand that. It's one of those issues that just seems to keep coming up because a lot of people who are having these experiences with these black-eyed kids sense a lot of fear, that they have to get out of the area as soon as possible. Because it seems like if you invite these children in, whether it's to a home, a business, or into your car, that's where things, even though nobody really has because they're so freaked out, that's where they believe things will really hit the fan, if you know what I'm saying. Have you ever heard of anybody actually allowing black-eyed kids in?
Well, I haven't heard about black-eyed kids being let in, but I have heard about the melonheads who also have black eyes. So I don't know I don't know if everyone, because it's localized to New Jersey, so I don't know if it's widespread knowledge of the melonheads, which I got into because the place in Jersey where they're seen is called Dracula Hills. So that interested me right away. Now the story of the melonheads that have black eyes, which I don't know if it's a crossbreed of the two stories or not, but the story of the melonheads is, and this part is true, there was a sanitarium that was taken over by a psychologist who took in, as an orphanage, problem children, which today probably just ADD kids, but they were problem kids, and he did experiments on them to calm them down. And part of it was injecting things into the cranium, and it caused them eyes to go black and their heads to become bulbous and bald. These kids, there was a fire there, and some people say the kids started it, and the doctor was killed, and they thought all the kids were killed. But ever since then, in the hills of New Jersey there, these melonhead people, some adults, some kids, they think they're living in the woods there. It's very thick woods. It's out in the middle of nowhere. Even though it's Jersey, it's the parts of Jersey that are, totally forested, and they're seen attacking deer, and they've attacked people. They're seen in headlights, all this stuff. So, again, we have the black eyes as part of a science experiment. So if these black-eyed kids, whether they're supernatural or not, I don't know. And the same thing is said about the melonheads. If you let them in, anywhere near your car, they're going to kill you. They're going to eat you. So part of it is, a tale told to kids to scare them, and part of it is people really do see them. Look it up on Wikipedia, melonheads. It's there. So the black-eyed kids could be, like I said, either a hybrid, some kind of Nephilim, or they could be what we call inhumans. Now, an inhuman spirit is something that was never human. And if a demon came to Earth, what we call a demon, or, the creature of the hell dimension, what we call the dimension we call hell, alternate universe, however you want to believe. If it came down to Earth and it was seen, would it appear as a child with black eyes? And I mean, that's why they're dangerous. I mean, there's so many explanations for all this stuff. But again, it's very hard because there's no way to definitively prove it. But again, they say these dimensions cross through ours, and it's a possibility that the demons that cause possession and all this stuff are able to pass through into our universe when the universe is crossed. And that theory of crossing universes and then being able to cross between parallel universes was a theory proven or, suggested by the math of Einstein. So this is not like, crazy paranormal, nonsense. There's a scientific study behind it, string theory and all of that. So it's if there are parallel universes, then there are creatures occupying it. And if they could cross into ours, whatever they are, who's to say?
I want to change topics for the last final half hour, if you don't mind, and that has to do with the idea of skeptics. You wanted to discuss skeptics tonight because you think a healthy dose of skepticism in all of us is a good thing. Yet there's a big difference between people being skeptical and what a lot of people are describing themselves as skeptics, but in reality, they're just non-believers of the whole genre.
I'm okay with non-believers. I'm okay with that. You don't have to believe what I believe, but if you have to respect the kernels of truth that are at the heart of all our beliefs or theories or whatever you want to describe them. A skeptic, like the woman on Finding Bigfoot, right? She's open to the possibility of Bigfoot, but she doesn't believe, and she finds explanations of everything. That's scientific argument. That's healthy, and that's good. The problem that I have with certain skeptics is they're dismissive and belittle like we're crazy, and they laugh at us as they're describing this stuff. And they're so dismissive that it's like, why are you a hater? I mean, it's like, okay, if you present it, like, okay, theskeptic.com, it presents the idea that the London Hammer is encased in a type of rock that's 140 million years old. But that rock, with water dripping, can grow because it's a mineral-based rock. So it's not inconceivable that the rock formed around the hammer, and the hammer is younger than the rock. Now, that's a legitimate discussion. I could have that discussion. In science, if they would fund the research, could probably prove it one way or the other. Great. Okay, let's have that discussion. But explain to me why the handle made of wood is coal. You know how long it takes for organic matter to decompose and become coal? So millions of years. Skepticism is good, because if we defeat the argument of the skeptics, we get one step closer to legitimacy. And if they defeat us, that's good, because we could accept a theory that we had that's not right. And if we do that, we gain legitimacy. And people look at us in an earnest way, that we're not like, stubborn people that just believe what we believe. We're looking for the truth. We're not saying this stuff is absolute. What we're saying is we're searching. These are possibilities. We want to know the answer. We're searching for the truth. So the skeptics that come at us like we're idiots or crazy, I want to punch in the head. The skeptics that come at us with respect to our theories and present their opposing facts, that's great. Because if we can get enough people to have the discussion, at least in a earnest way, in a respectful way, go both sides, that's what we need.
I understand that's what we need. We need more people to question what is going on, and we need more people to point out the BS that is in this field, because I'm a firm believer, and you and I have talked about this before, Ian, that this field of research does a fantastic job in shooting down, looking down the barrel and pulling the trigger at the same time, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it's difficult because there are so many people out there who are doing credible, visible work that is for the betterment of trying to find the answers to these questions, yet we keep shooting ourselves. And I don't know if I'm phrasing that very, very well right now, but do you think that because we are our own worst enemy in this field, that the skeptics have a tougher time in believing what we are doing?
I think, again, it's the general term paranormal or supernatural that really is becoming the problem, because paranormal encompasses such a wide range. When you break paranormal down, into cryptozoology, and ghost hunting or UFO research and all of that, alternative history, archaeology, down into better, more terms that separates, you're not mixing the stuff that drives people away. So if someone feels that mediums, psychics, ghosts are nonsense, or UFOs are nonsense, you can draw people in under cryptozoology because new species are found all the time. The same thing with ancient history. If you immediately take the discovery of the irradiated city and say, okay, alien war, God war, according to the Mahabharata, people are going to go, you're nuts. But if you say irradiated city, archaeology, alternate history, what is this? Then all of a sudden it seems more possible to have a conversation with someone who thinks paranormal people are kooks. So I don't, like anything else, I don't feel I have to mediate myself to not say paranormal, but I think, we have a responsibility to try and reach people. So I would use these terms to soft pedal it into people to get them thinking without thinking we're crazy, to try and use the terminology that allows us to make an advance to them, to try and ease them into the subject matter. Anytime you say paranormal, you're immediately back to Madame Zotska, and that's Houdini and the mediums, and they always bring that up. It's very hard. I mean, I don't usually talk about, my experiences that I've had with ghosts, but I felt comfortable here because the audience is open to it. So when I talk about it with other people, I usually preface it with the fact that, the science of a ghost is possible. When you walk through, there are ley lines across the earth, the electromagnetic fields, and the lines cross. And when they cross into a square, like a tic-tac-toe board in the center square, you walk through that, it's possible that the electromagnetic field, because electric energy is what our data in our brains are, can be uploaded into that area. So and it has something to do with fresh running water and limestone that creates these electromagnetic cages. We don't understand it yet. But if you walk through one of those places and part of your soul or memories are uploaded, isn't it possible that it's trapped there, and when someone walks through that area or some kind of consciousness is left behind? Scientifically, it's possible. The more and more we learn, it's possible. So if that's possible, then the ghosts are possible. We know dark matter is out there in the universe. In fact, more dark matter than anything else. So if the theories of string theory and alternate universes of Einstein are correct, and these universes are out there, alternate universes that we can't see, then there's an explanation for heaven and hell. So now all of a sudden, life after death and all of that has a reality basis in science. So if you take it that way, and then tell the story of I had a conversation with a ghost, and a ghost is just a trapped part of the soul, or if you consciously don't transition or walk into the light, whatever you want to say, and you stay on the earth, it's all possible. It becomes possible. Because if you're there's a consciousness there, you don't go where you're supposed to go. It's all possible.
I think it is possible, too. I guess what I'm trying to get at here in regards to the skeptics, Ian, where do you see them giving this field, whether it's paranormal, aliens, cryptids like Bigfoot, where do you see them giving the credit or helping to provide any proof that there is something out there that is strange going on, because so many times we hear these people who are rightfully skeptic saying, show me the proof, and yet when they finally get some sort of proof that looks definitive, they shoot it down before they've even investigated it. Like, is it an unfair street for those who are having an experience?
Yes and no. It's fair to say that if the proof has alternate explanations that make sense. Now, I'll give a perfect example. I was watching Ghost Hunters one night, and there was an episode of a woman who believed the mother was haunting them because she had the ashes on her mantle. And when one of the ghost hunters got up from a chair, the camera was upside down in his hand, and there was a full apparition. You could see it so clearly of a shadow person, which could be a representation of an entity. It was such definitive proof for me, because there's no way that he could have done that or set it up that, you know, as he got up, it was on the right spot at the right time. It was such a such a conflux of things that had to happen in a row that it couldn't be faked. The timing of it was incredible, and the luck of it. So you look at that and you go, wow. And then a skeptic comes along and says, well, maybe there's someone standing on the other side of the room in front of a light and it created a shadow. That's the problem with evidence. You know what your lying eyes are seeing, right? But someone else who's a skeptic looks at it through a skeptical eye. And they look at anyone who believes in aliens or ghosts, because of all the fakers out there that are throughout history, that they look at us through a jaundiced eye, the evidence. What it's going to take is someone to have definitive proof of something. You know, that's what it's going to take. And we're getting closer. You know, technology...
Are we getting closer, though? Are we getting closer?
Sure.
Man? See, I don't
Yes,
see
I
that
think
we
we are.
I don't think we are. I think we have a lot of people playing with technology that they think works, okay, that in reality I don't think we're any closer to being definitive.
I think we are. I think it's happening slowly. But the fact that, you know, technology just discovered the biggest crater on Earth. You have... that explains the first mass extinction of almost all life on the planet. Now, that's very interesting. It's also interesting that there's satellite photography of the area around Vesuvius has seen now the topography of the land is a bunch of calderas. Now, we have always debated the death of the dinosaurs was an asteroid, but an asteroid itself couldn't have destroyed the dinosaurs altogether. But there's all this evidence of a charred, in the rock record, of a charred area. Now, these traps or calderas in Yellowstone and in Italy, if the asteroid hit, and these dates are lining up, seems more and more, that it somehow the created some kind of like earth vibrations that went right there. The asteroid was big enough to create these vibrations that upset the magma under the plates and forced it up, and that caused not only the debris in the sky from the asteroid, which blocked out the sun and everything else, but it also caused the traps, these supervolcanoes, to erupt. And if there was a mass eruption of volcanoes, that would have covered the whole earth and burned everything. So the idea that we're not discovering things isn't exactly correct. There's some radiated city it is going to be a big deal. It's as technology advances, we're going to find more and more stuff. I mean, if we are now proving alternate universes, God particles that disappear and reappear, well, where the hell do they go? The theory is into another universe. If we could create this stuff by bombarding particles in a superconductor in Sweden and in Switzerland, then everything is starting to come together. We've proven data storage in electromagnetic fields. We're finding planets that are in the habitable zone. One of them has some kind of energy. What they believe is an energy shield that collects the rays of the sun and beams it down to the planet, because there's something in orbit that doesn't fit, and it's not glowing at the right timetables, that there's something in orbit there blocking it, and it's not a planet. So, I mean, we're making discoveries every day that are bringing us closer to some kind of truth. The reason it seems like it's not happening because the dots aren't connecting, because our technology is evolving. But as technology goes, we're going to find more and more.
I understand that.
I mean,
I understand and I appreciate that. But let's take the evidence that's here today, okay? Let's take the evidence that's here today where we have obvious fakers, and we talked about the whole YouTube thing earlier, that it's all about getting hits and making money off of those hits when YouTube pays, especially if you can get 1 million+ hits on a video. That's going to pay a very nice chunk of change to anybody. So the value is there to do it. But with that being said, Ian, let's say I'm out in the wilderness here in British Columbia and I see and I get great video footage of a dogman or a Bigfoot. There is absolutely, I'm going to say with strict honesty, I'm going to say about 70 to 75% of the people will not believe that's real. Even though I have clear images, I have no CGI because I have no camera experience, okay? People are going to absolutely carve me if I come out in public with that, but it may be the smoking gun that these researchers need in order to show that it exists. Like
video footage is never going to be definitive evidence. What would be definitive evidence? And I don't know why no one's doing this, but taking ground-penetrating radar and heading out into areas where we know there's been a group of sightings of Bigfoot and start looking under the ground for burials. Because it's quite conceivable that we don't have a Bigfoot skeleton because they bury their dead. Simple explanation. If you believe in the cryptozoology of Bigfoot being an actual animal or mammal. So we go out there with making howls and banging on trees and all that, and we get responses, different noises, but none of it's definitive because we don't have a skeleton. So let's go out and look for a skeleton. We found dens, what we believe. We know areas they're in. Let's get the ground-penetrating radar into the woods. And it's not really set up for that. But even in the oceans, we create different types of sonar and radar and all this stuff that work in the ocean. So someone will create a ground-penetrating radar that is easily movable through a forest. You find a burial ground there. You dig it up, disturbed earth that looks like a burial site. You dig it up, you might find the Bigfoot bones. Then you've got your definitive proof.
I get that, and I can believe that. It's just too bad that it's gone to that route, because we're all wanting that proof. But it just keeps coming down. It keeps coming down, though, that we need a body. That's what it comes down to. As sad as that sounds,
sure,
and hopefully somebody doesn't have to kill one, but we need a body.
Well, I mean, we have the skull of a Yeti that's in a monastery in the Himalayas that Josh Gates got a hair from. And it was inconclusive what it was. Now, they looked at the the cranium, and it's because the skin is sewed, they can't really tell if that's the shape of the head because there's no animal in existence that has that shaped head. Now, why can't we go out there with the laser scan the head, and look at the sutures of where, if it was skinned and then sewed like that, or that's the actual shape of it? I mean, we could do more investigation. What about this hand of the Yeti that was in a monastery in Tibet, or in the Himalayas? I won't say Tibet. I think it's I can't think of the name of it. Bhutan. Now, this hand existed until 2000 and something when someone stole it. Why did it sit there for all these years and nobody investigated? We could take a little tiny piece of the skin or the bone and do a DNA analysis. It was never done. Why? Because it's the hand of a Yeti and we don't want to explain it. So there may be, evidence out there that isn't investigated. That's the thing that drives me crazy. We say there's only video evidence, but there are hairs that have been inconsistent. The same thing with the chupacabra and a lot of other animals there are DNA. I mean, some woman, if you look at her online, I saw this on History Channel. She found what she believed of a chupacabra that was hit by a car, and she froze the carcass. And it's not like any dog I've ever seen. And when they did the DNA test, it didn't come back as a dog. They didn't know what it was. So why are we looking? It's like, yeah, you pay for the test, we'll give you the answer, but then nobody does the follow-up. Well, if it's inconclusive or they don't know what it is, it's not like they couldn't get DNA out of it. They just couldn't match the DNA to anything. So why are we investigating? There's proof out there that we can test and try to get definitive proof, but it relies on private people paying money to get this done, or a TV show to do it. And then when they get an answer that leaves a question, the show ends, and that's it. Nothing follow-up. If it's not recognizable DNA, then what the hell is it? I'm at the end of the show, I'm going, yeah, now what?
I have no idea, man. I have no idea.
But to say there's not evidence that could be conclusive out there, that's not exactly true. There is a possibility that we'll get conclusive evidence if someone does a follow-up.
That's why we need you, man, making movies over this. Writing books.
Absolutely. That's what we need, a lot of people to get involved. And when the fakers show up, we need to call them out and make sure that our community is known to be rational and something to take seriously. And when someone does something like this, we don't let the media, turn them into kooks. We turn them into villains that they are, and for messing with what we consider a legitimate scientific study avenue.
I would agree. My friend, it is that time of the night. It's that time already. It always flies by, but you and I will set our date for you to come on the show in August because we love having you around every 2 months. And I know our listeners do as well, my friend. Thank you so much.
And I love being here. And thank you to all the listeners and everyone out there for all the great questions.
Not a problem. We can do that for whatever we want. Because guess what, buddy? I got control of this thing, man. I got control.
You're the puppet master.
I am. Ian, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. We will talk to you in 2 months from now on the show. But I'll talk to you a little bit sooner than that because we're kind of friends and share the same birthday.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm going to get you to hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. If you're listening in the background, you hear Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL. Little brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Tomorrow night on the program, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, we have the SOR Paranormal Roundtable. I got some friends coming on over. We're all going to sit in the cabin and have a good time. I hope you join us at spacedoutradio.com. I want to thank my team, Eric Markham from the Encounter Online, Kim Gandy, Director of Business Development, Bob Davis, our great intro voice, Thomas McGowan in sales, Catherine James on social media, Jolene Lammers, web design, and our Paracon coordinator, Lana Scott. That's who helps put this thing together each and every night. But most importantly, we thank you, our valued listeners, because without you spreading the word, spreading the love on Twitter, in the chat rooms, on Facebook, Instagram, we could never do it together or without you. So remember, together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in exactly 21 hours from now because, well, it's Friday night. We're getting ready for a Canada Day long weekend because up here, Americans, we like to celebrate as well. 150 years old Canada is this year, and we're going to party it on up. Mr. Bumblefoot, do me a favor. Take us home.